we are going to start out with the K-12 committee and then transition to post-secondary. Just in terms of K-12, I want to make sure we acknowledge our entire committee here. Stephanie Couch, who is the co-chair of that committee, along with myself, but we also have Sean Boger from the National Inventors Hall of Fame, Britt Magnuson, who's also from the National Inventors Hall of Fame, Nancy Conrad with the Conrad Foundation, David Sorn, who is with the Copyright and Creativity, as well as Stephen Key and Madeline Key, who work with licensing and entrepreneurship. And so I want to make sure that I acknowledge the entire team because, as we've seen today, it's a collective body of people working together. Its resources were much better when we're able to coordinate. So what we do on our committee is we park all of our logos and all of our information at the door, and we focus on how we as a collective can work across organizations and across communities to reach out to students. So one of the first things with our committee is the really trying to do an assessment to see where we have programs and where we need to be. And we discovered there's lots of good programs out there that are working in the intellectual property space. There are a lot of people who have not heard of intellectual property. There are a whole lot of people, and so there's good work to be done. As Elizabeth mentioned, high school students are saying that they're getting some of this information. Some of it is civics, but what else can we do? So we're working with students, we're working with educators. One of the things that our committee tried to do is to set up an IP Education Resource Center. And Stephanie, maybe you can tell people a little bit about the Education Resource Center. I know you went out with the call.
Sure. So we sent out a national survey and allowed entities that have resources to submit. And then the committee went through a process of finding those that we felt could be most useful and tried to make sure that there were resources for every grade span, because we do see the development of inventors and their ability to bring their creations to their audiences as something that develops over time. So that was step one.
Okay, and definitely we want all of you to be a part of step two, and that is it is a living resource on the USIPA stage, and we want to make sure that people are reaching out and letting us know about organizations and agencies and programs that are out there that are focused on intellectual property, invention education, nurturing, and building creators. And so some of the resources are there. It is scratching the surface. We need much more, and we would like all of you. The ask from us is to help populate that resource center to add additional programs that are out there, because we want to see what's happening at the local level. And if there aren't programs at the local level, we want to help empower people to connect with those who can help set those up. The other focus for our committee has been on pro bono. You heard earlier that from INTA that there needs to be more pro bono. We definitely agree about that, and we're looking at working with students and also educators to think about how we can reach more people, because sometimes students and teachers aren't going to qualify for the pro bono categories. So we need industry, we need corporations that are willing to work in that realm. And so just as a committee, what we've tried to do is tell some of those stories of people who are out there working with pro bono programs and supporting education and outreach at those early ages. So we had our first webinar where we brought in an individual practitioner who worked with a team out in Arizona to help them obtain their patent. And he tried to demystify some of the things that people may think, oh, I can't work with students, I can't work with teachers. Another example was out in Pomona, California. And Stephanie, I don't know if you want to tell people some about the Heart and Soul team.
Oh, I'd be happy to. So the work that we do at the Lemelson MIT program and many other organizations do, and we come together under the network called Invent Ed, is we do work with teachers and students to help them find real problems in their community that need real solutions. And some of those students do bring forth prototypes that do need protection. So Joyce is referring to pro bono support that we received from Microsoft's Make What's Next program for a high school team in Southern California at Gary High that developed a device for diabetes sufferers for foot care. And this is a 97% Latinx school, very low income school. And the experience of both going through the process of creating and then protecting their invention was just incredibly meaningful to the students, the communities, and that's the kind of experience we want all kids to have in all communities. And so that will give them an opportunity to apply the IP education you all can help us bring. And you've all heard that saying, use it or lose it. We want them to use it, starting in the early years and getting all the way through high school and beyond.
Now, I think that was a wonderful example where you see corporations coming in and thinking about how can we help in the pro bono space. So we've seen it at the individual level, we've seen it with corporations. So there are tremendous opportunities in this room to support education for students who are working with who need pro bono support. And we have our third example. I didn't time this, I promise you, but I noticed that our deputy director just entered in the room. He's in the back there, Deputy Director Brent. And on Tuesday, he's going to be talking with yet another example, looking at the pro bono support. And that is with a school out of Delaware where educators are working or have worked with, I should say, the Widener School of Law in Delaware with the pro bono program, because again, that is another example. So it can happen with individual firms, it can happen with corporations, and it can happen with the law school pro bono program. And so the work of this committee has primarily focused on looking at those two resources. One, broadening education, and two, providing resources so that students, before they get to secondary or post-secondary, can think about intellectual property. And with that, I'm going to move over to Lateef, who's going to talk some about what else is happening in the university space.
Well, great, thank you. Okay, so clearly I'm not on the patent side of stuff. Okay, so Daryl Lemon and I we co-chair the College and Universities Committee of UPI, of US IPA, and the approach that we have undertaken with respect to colleges and universities is that what we are focusing in on is trying to develop a method for expanding and enhancing IP curricular and extracurricular activities in the college and university context, as well as the overall role of colleges and universities in the national IP ecosystem as a whole. So what our approach does, it sort of revolves around perceiving colleges and universities as a kind of IP conduit for the production and dissemination of IP into our society as a whole. And so we look at that conduit as sort of having four key access points on that conduit. At the entry level, of course, there are community colleges and undergraduate colleges. At the next point on the spectrum would be graduate schools and professional schools, obviously, for example, law schools, medical schools. Then we come to that sort of where the university kind of ends and society begins. That's I like to look at that as that permeable membrane that we all like to affectionately call technology transfer. And then from there, okay, colleges and universities can have a more effective and enhanced role in participating in IP law and policy development in society as a whole. In addition, as we are looking at these particular points on the IP conduit that colleges and universities embody, and trying to follow along through it and hit these key points. We also understand that we can't try to spoon the ocean, right? So basically, Daryl and I are going to just talk about 4 particular initiatives, each of which we start out as sort of in a template form, right? That we can then, with the success of each of these initiatives, we can scale it up so that we can impact a broader spectrum of the college and university group of cohorts. So I'm just going to talk very quickly about 2 of them, and then Daryl Lim is going to talk about the other 2. I'm going to talk about the 2 initiatives that are more so at the exit end of the spectrum. I was thinking about it last night. I was going to say the back end, but that doesn't really sound too good. So exit end. So at the exit end, closer to this permeable membrane, there is what happens at the professional school level, particularly in law schools. So how do we impact law schools? So again, not trying to spoon the ocean, we focused on a particular type of law school situation because you have niches in each of the law school contexts. So for our initial initiative, we've been focusing in on how do we move the needle forward in the HBCU context. So we've been working on something that we call the HBCU Tech Law Summit. And basically what it does is that it's an annual program in which we have a full day of IP panel presentations and programs that focuses specifically on students. We bring IP professionals, IP practitioners together with HBCU law students so that these law students can now understand about the range of professional opportunities in the IP space, from being patent law practitioners, copyright practitioners, to being IP professionals such as patent examiners and the like, just a range of things that they wouldn't otherwise be exposed to, and gives them an opportunity to see that this is how they can, channel their careers and their objectives into these types of professional opportunities. In addition to the annual program, there are also things that we do throughout the year targeting students. One of the most important things is that we provide HBCU law students with these little, I call them micro stipends, little awards that not only acknowledge their achievements in the IP space. For example, you took a bunch of IP courses, you did really, really well in it, so here's a little award and a little stipend that goes with it. Or students who are trying to be proactive. Students in many of these HBCU contexts, they don't have access to the type of internship, externship opportunities that may be available at other schools, and so the idea is to enable them to be able to take advantage of those opportunities. Oftentimes it's a cost thing, right? I can't afford to take an unpaid internship in the field of IP, which will really help move me forward in my career, and instead I've got to get a summer job that won't help me, but it will pay me something. So these stipends enable students to take advantage of these opportunities. And I'm happy to say that in our nation, we have 6 formal HBCU law schools. As of last year's program in March, it's every March that we do this particular conference, we had 4 of the HBCUs. As of this week, we have been having some wrap-up conversations with the 5th, Thurgood Marshall, and by the time we get to the end of the year, we'll have all 6. And the idea, again, is to not spoon the ocean, to use this as a template, right? So that other areas of the college and university context can be involved. So for example, we can replicate this, for example, for rural law schools in rural areas, or law schools that are in post-industrial city contexts, right? So to customize it so that we can bring each type of law school on board, meet their needs, and then figure out what's the best way to bring them into more effectively into the IP ecosystem. The other initiative that I want to talk about at that exit end is the technology transfer aspect. I don't have to tell you all what an incredible IP evangelist Jamie Renee is at NAI. You heard from her earlier today, and one of the programs that have been a part of this college and university effort is an initiative that Jamie is heading up for us at the on behalf of NAI. And this initiative, the focus is to grow the number of underrepresented patentees in academia. To do this by providing them with whatever support and information that they need that they aren't already finding within their university structure. Because again, we have to remember, not every university has the full-blown 100% technology transfer resources that other universities have. These universities may have incredibly active inventors and principal investigators and researchers, but they need the support that isn't always there on a resource level. This initiative under NAI works to collaborate with the research and inventor enablers to support their activities. They're also in the process of doing some market research to gauge the interest, knowledge, and demand for this type of support within these universities. And in terms of specific concrete tools, they are partnering with Autumn to provide technology transfer services to the universities that need that type of support. And in addition, as a carrot, free NAI memberships for each of the universities. So these are two of the initiatives, as I said, on the exit end. And then on the other end, I'll turn it over to my co-chair, Daryl Lim, to talk about the other two.
Thanks, Latif. And is this mic working? Yes. A little closer. Okay. Well, good morning, everybody. It's good to see all of you. I think it's worth just pausing a moment to underscore something that Scott mentioned yesterday. So what's the global IP Alliance members in this room to do something that is local in their own country, but then also the US IP Alliance people to think nationally about how, in a non-traditional, out-of-the-box way, education is really the driver for the future. It's the future of the fabric of our society. It's the future of reinventing our economy. It's the future of really the world order in innovation. And so when we think out of the box, it helps us to look for solutions which are not there. And that brings me to the first of the two initiatives that Latif mentioned, and that's the work of the Michelson IP Institute. Now, Michelson is not a school per se. They are a non-profit. And so I think the first takeaway there is to think out of the box in terms of where the education is coming from. They are a non-profit that is dedicated to providing access to IP education, to build support for budding innovators and entrepreneurs. And one of the things that they have done, really quite remarkable, is to help students to be confident in developing the ideas, connecting those ideas to pro bono legal resources. One of the things that they share is that a student has found a way to make meal preparations faster and has applied for a patent for it. Another student has found a way to develop skincare products and has developed a trademark for it. So when you speak to the young people in a language of their everyday, it resonates and it helps them to internalize it. And I like the way that they phrase this. It's the HBCU IP Futures collaboration. And for those folks who are not from the US, HBCU is historically black colleges and universities. It's futures because it's forward-looking. It invests in a infrastructural aspect of our society. And whenever you think about infrastructure, it requires time. And I think in this day and age, it is so easy for us to be caught up in deliverables here and now. I think this is one area that as we go forward, we need to be patient because lasting change takes time. But it's important because you have a generation that is confident and knowledgeable. They are more willing to innovate, they are more willing to collaborate, and they are more willing to be open to the world. So this is not just about what's happening in this room. It is something, as I told Scott, something that could reshape an entire generation for the future. The second thing I wanted to share about what the Michelson Institute has been doing, it's what's called the Community Colleges as Economic Engines of Communities initiative. And there, I think it's worth remembering something which Dave Karpos said, which is the power of local. And here, Michelson has empowered 85 community colleges to have a supply talent pipeline within their individual communities. They have established an IP Educators in Residence program where community college faculty, they collaborate, they come together, and they help each other find best practices for teaching intellectual property. And they're hoping, linking to what my colleagues have said earlier, to push that pipeline further down to the K to 16 level. Globally, they have partnered with Udemy. This is, if you have not heard about it, a global destination for learning and teaching online that reaches more than 54 million students, over 200,000 courses, 71,000 instructors in 75 languages. So the breadth and reach is staggering. With US IPA and with NAI, they have collaborated to develop courses in intellectual property that have already reached 20,000 students to date and counting. And so that's Michelson. The second initiative I think it's worth talking about is one which Judge Michel mentioned in his opening remarks. I think too much of what goes on in IP has gone above the heads and not into the hearts of the people who make these decisions. So I think it's critical that as universities, as nonprofits, we think about how we can transmute the ideas, as Scott is wont to say, from people's heads into people's hearts, heads into people's hands, and to translate things like DEI initiatives into having best practices that can uplift communities and our society. Now, Dave, Andre, Iancu, and Judge Michel have come together to form what you might have read in the news about the Council for Innovation Promotion, or C4IP. And their goal is to be able to bring congressmen, senators, and to the state level to see what's going on. And you heard the importance of this in an earlier panel. But universities, too, need to do their part to be thought leaders in this, to bring the voices together to inform decision makers in boardrooms, in courtrooms, for those who make the laws and those who enforce the laws. So in the coming months, my ask for you is to help us to identify voices in the community, the creative community, innovation communities, that we should spotlight and bring before an event where we will have in the room staffers, law clerks, as well as the decision makers themselves, to hear about why IP is important, how it affects national security, sustainability, inclusive innovation, and a whole host of other issues which matter to them in a way that avoids that legalist. And I think the IP Alliance represents that those best efforts. As Joyce says, we are stronger together. And as Lisa Jorgensen reminded us yesterday, it is through the engine of education, it is through the engine of intellectual property that communities are uplifted. It helps countries. I came from Singapore. I've seen the difference that intellectual property can make in a society that has zero natural resources except for its people. And if it can happen in Singapore, there's no reason why that can't happen anywhere else in the world. So it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity to make a difference, to uplift our generation, our children in the United States and around the world. Thank you very much.
Okay, we would like to open the floor for questions.
Thank you. I'm Tom Colson. I actually have a comment. We're talking a lot about training university students and law students, and I have 3 of them, and I can tell you there's 3 things that they're attracted to: Netflix, Hulu, and Prime. With that in mind, we created something we call IP the Movie. It's a 71-minute movie about IP that we would be happy to donate to the US IPA for any of your university students or law students to watch. It's 71 minutes, everything we can teach about intellectual property fundamentals in a funny, entertaining way. It's not Forrest Gump or Avatar, but it's pretty good, and we would donate that. And if Scott wants to spice up the meeting a bit, we'd be happy to show the 1-minute trailer, which is really funny, on the big screen. So just let us know if you want us to do that. But if you want this, we'll donate it to anybody who wants to watch it. So thank you.
Thank you.
We're almost. Can you hear me? We're almost out of time. Any other questions before we? Yes.
So one of the things that I think we really have a great opportunity with is the business schools. If you go to Harvard Business School, for example, they have no training on intellectual property. Same with Stanford. Go down the list. The other thing is there are director colleges. I'm on a publicly traded company. I've been to the Stanford Director College twice. Nothing about intellectual property. So if you really want to get to the decision makers, go for the money.
I'd like to comment on that quickly. So for 6 years, we ran a national collegiate level student prize. So we have data from applicants from all over the U.S. And in that data, we have gender and we have race, ethnicity. And so as we parse that data with a researcher from UMass Amherst, we saw that for underrepresented males, there were many applicants at 2-year colleges going down the business path who had submissions in the consumer device category. And I can tell you, working with the community colleges, there isn't a lot of IP protection or technology licensing assistance, so that's why I'm so grateful for the colleagues here and the work they're doing.
Yeah, and if I could just quickly add, I think that's a great comment, because oftentimes when we think about increasing engagement and participation in the IP ecosystem, it gets this reputation as if we're only talking about a particular segment of our society, that we're only looking at HBCUs or we're only looking at marginalized communities, but we're looking at everybody. And so the comment about Stanford is excellent. We need to enhance the IP curricular and extracurricular activities at colleges and universities across the nation. And that's one of the overarching goals that we're seeking to achieve. So I think that was just wonderful to hear that aspect of the equation.
Good morning. This is DJ Nag. I'm the chair of Ohio IP Alliance. We've recently formed. It doesn't have to be a Stanford or Harvard. We actually have a program at Rutgers. We've graduated 600 students in educating them on IP. Not from a legal side, but more from the business side. And this all happened because of the collaboration with the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office. The Global IP Academy helped us, and we have taken the students to the PTO on a consistent basis, except for the COVID times. And this has become a signature course. And every time we cut off the number of students at 100 now, and folks from here in this room actually participate as speakers. Jim Malakowski was there, Andre Yanku was there, and a lot of folks have come in and talked to the students. So I would highly encourage, if you are someone like myself who's not a real professor, I always tell my students, so they can't really fire me, so I keep on going back and teaching the course. And it's been a lovely experience in graduating those 100 students. So thank you for what you're doing, and this is amazing ecosystem building.
Hi, Irina Faze, and I'm with the K-12 group at GIPA. I want to talk about the kids who are coming up in the K-12 and what they care about. Similar to kind of the movie aspect of it, they live on Snapchat and TikTok and Instagram. If there's a way to create a pipeline, we have to be where they live. And it has to be cool, and it has to be interesting, and they have to care a little bit about it and what it means to them. So I feel like a really important call to action is we have to give them the so what and the so much fun, and actually hit them where their pocket is as well, because they're huge consumers. And I think that's a really, I don't have an answer. I don't have that many ideas around it, but I think that as a group, really need to focus there.
Arena, I just want to say, I think you nailed it. I think we have to ask people that we are trying to engage in the system how they would like to be engaged, and really talk to people to find out what it is they need. We have some work-based learning programs where we bring in high school students, and we're paying the students to work, and we're trying to bring in students from in and around areas where USPTO has regional offices. But it's not just a USPTO thing. The students are giving back to us. They are telling and talking to us about what students would like to see, because who would know better than high school students from areas in and around the agency? And we've been able to connect them with other organizations. I will not say that I know that they use some of the Michelson IP materials, intellectual property materials, some of the films. We've been able to get their take on some of the resources that are out there, and actually to help inform how we talk to students. Because again, if you want to know how you reach people, you need to ask the people you're trying to reach.
But again, without US IPA, for example, we wouldn't be able to reach the Arts, Media, and Entertainment Committee people, but here we can have those cross-pollinated conversations because our kids really care about these, like sports, and so we can bring them in through that route. So thanks to US IPA, we can get more innovative in our own work.
Definitely. We all need to talk.